There is a wall that is fireproof, pest-proof, mold-proof, and carbon negative. It literally pulls pollution out of the atmosphere while it stands. It scored a perfect 0 on the American Fire Safety Scale, the lowest flame spread and smoke development physically possible. No fiberglass product in this country can match it. No spray foam, no cellulose. It survived 1,400 years inside a French bridge abutment. It lined the walls of a 6th century Indian temple complex that UNESCO now protects as a World Heritage Site. It was rediscovered, tested, proven, and then banned. Not because it failed, but because the plant it comes from was classified alongside heroin by the United States government. It was placed on Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act, on the same list as LSD. For 81 years, a wall made from hemp, lime, and water was illegal to build in America, while a $69 billion insulation industry sold you products that could not do what this wall does for free. This is hempcrete, the carbon-negative insulation they made illegal, not because it was dangerous, but because it grew from the wrong plant. The archive opens in 1986 in Nogent-sur-Seine, France, a small town on the banks of the Seine in the Champagne region, where a 16th century half-timbered house called the Maison de la Turque was dying from the inside out. The medieval oak frame still held, 500 years of winters, and the bones were good. But between those beams, the original wattle and daub infill had crumbled to dust. Moisture had crept in. The timber was beginning to rot where the fill had failed. A builder named Charles Rossetti was hired to save it. The problem was the replacement material. Concrete was too rigid. It would crack against the living timber as the frame shifted with the seasons. Fiberglass was too light, too dead. It could not breathe with a 500-year-old structure that had been designed to exhale moisture through its walls. Standard modern materials did not understand this building. They would have killed it faster than the decay. Rossetti turned to something older. Working with La Chanvrière de l'Aube, a regional hemp processing cooperative in the Aube department, he took the woody inner core of the hemp stalk, a pale, rough-cut material called shiv, and mixed it with hydrated lime and water. The SHIV looks like wood chips light enough to blow off your palm. Mixed with the lime, it becomes a thick paste, sticky, warm to the touch, dense enough to hold its shape, but light enough to pack by hand. His crew pressed this mixture into the wall cavities between the blackened oak beams. No machinery, no formwork, hands and trowels, and a recipe that would have made sense to a Roman mason. Within weeks, the lime began to cure, absorbing carbon dioxide from the air as it hardened. The wall was not just drying, it was mineralizing, slowly petrifying, like stone forming in real time. And then the results came. The hempcrete breathed with the timber. It did not crack. It did not trap moisture. It pulled excess humidity from the air and released it when conditions dried naturally, without a single mechanical system. It insulated while also storing heat. The medieval house, after Rossetti's renovation, performed better than it had in centuries. The density of the finished hempcrete was approximately 340 kilograms per cubic meter, roughly 6 times lighter than traditional concrete. The building still stands today. It is protected as part of the architectural heritage of Nogent-sur-Seine. This was not patching. This was reinvention. A 16th century house restored with a material that used a process older than the building itself. Rossetti did not know it at the time, but he had started something that could not be stopped. Within a decade, France had formalized hempcrete construction practices. By 1997, 150 professionals gathered in Troyes for the first national conference on building with hemp. The material spread to the United Kingdom, to Canada, to Australia. Everywhere it arrived, it performed. And everywhere it arrived, one country was missing from the conversation: the United States. Because in France, hemp had never been illegal. In the United States, it had been classified as a Schedule I narcotic, the same category as heroin, for 27 years before Rossetti ever packed his first wall. But hempcrete did not begin in France. It did not begin in the 20th century. It did not begin anywhere close to modern memory. In 6th century Gaul, before France was France, the Merovingians mixed hemp shiv with a mineral binder and packed it into the abutment of a bridge. Archaeologists confirmed the find centuries later. The material was still intact. 1,400 years underground, the composite held. This is the oldest confirmed use of hemp as a building material in the Western world. Not soft insulation, not temporary fill, a load-bearing application that outlasted every empire that followed the one that built it. Hemp bonds with lime in a way that is unique among natural fibers. Its high silica content creates a cementitious reaction. The mixture does not merely dry, it mineralizes. Over months and years, the lime absorbs carbon dioxide and converts to calcium carbonate. The wall turns back to stone, and it traps carbon permanently as it does. The Merovingians understood this. So did the builders of the Ellora caves. In Maharashtra, India, 34 caves were carved from basalt cliffs between the 6th and 11th centuries. The complex is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, one of the most significant archaeological monuments in the world. On the interior walls, applied 1,500 years ago, hempcrete plaster endures to this day. Not preserved behind glass, not reconstructed. Still there, still holding. Move forward to 1727. An Indian construction record describes a composite called pucca, a mixture of brick dust, lime, molasses, and cut hemp. The record states that when it dries, it is as hard and tougher than firm stone or brick. In Nagano, Japan, a hemp house built in 1698 still stands, its structure incorporating asagara, hemp stalks woven into the traditional kaya grass roof. 3 centuries of snowfall. The building remains. This was not a fringe material. Hemp was grown as a mandated crop by early American colonists. The Jamestown settlement in the 1600s required every settler to cultivate it. The British Navy ran on hemp. Every sail, every rope. Columbus carried over 80 tons of hemp rigging and sailcloth across the Atlantic. Civilizations did not merely use hemp, they depended on it. Now imagine cutting that stalk, green and fibrous on the outside. Inside, a pale woody core that snaps like balsa wood. Light, porous, honeycombed with air pockets that give it extraordinary insulating properties. Mix it with hydrated lime, calcium hydroxide made from pure limestone, and water. The mixture does not slump like concrete. It holds its shape. And over weeks, as the lime reacts with carbon dioxide in the air, it petrifies into calcium carbonate. The wall is literally turning back into stone and trapping carbon as it does. These civilizations understood something that modern building science is only now reproving. The best insulation is not always the material that resists heat transfer the fastest. Sometimes it is the material that absorbs heat, stores it, and releases it on its own schedule. Hempcrete does both. It insulates and it buffers. It breathes and it mineralizes. It was engineered by time. The question was never whether hempcrete worked. 1,400 years of evidence settled that. The question modern researchers set out to answer was how well it worked, and whether the numbers could force the institutions to pay attention. In February of 2020, a company called Hempitecture, based in Ketchum, Idaho, sent hempcrete specimens to a testing laboratory for ASTME 84 evaluation, the standard American test for flame spread and smoke development in building materials. Every insulation product sold in this country must pass that test. Fiberglass passes it, spray foam passes it, cellulose passes it. Hempcrete did not just pass it, it scored a perfect 0 on both indices. Flame spread index 0, smoke developed index 0. On a scale of 0 to 450, hempcrete achieved the best possible rating. The testing laboratory reported that the only material they had ever seen perform this well was mineral wool. 0 flame spread, 0 smoke, not low, not competitive, perfect. Then in July of 2024, a Pennsylvania company called Amerishinvar Cast Hemp took it further. At Intertech Laboratory in York, Pennsylvania, they subjected a 12-inch hempcrete wall, constructed with a central frame and finished with lime plaster, and following the specifications of the 2024 International Residential Code. to 1700 degrees Fahrenheit for 60 continuous minutes under load. This was the first full-scale ASTME 119 fire resistance test ever performed on a hempcrete wall section in the United States. 1700 degrees, 60 minutes. The exterior face of the panel, the side away from the fire, never rose a single degree above ambient temperature. Not 1 degree. Cameron McIntosh of Americhanvre, watching from the control room as the data returned, called it breathtaking. And it was, because this was not theoretical. This was measured, documented, witnessed. A wall made from a plant, lime, and water withstanding temperatures that would destroy conventional framing, and the side you would be standing on stayed room temperature. But fire resistance is only one dimension. ASTMC 518 thermal testing confirmed hempcrete's R value at approximately 2.2 per inch. In the 12 to 16-inch walls that hempcrete construction uses, that delivers meaningful insulation, but the R value alone undersells it. Think of a hempcrete wall as a thermal battery. It does not just slow the loss of heat, it absorbs heat during the day and releases it slowly through the night. By 3 in the morning, when a fiberglass insulated house is bleeding warmth and the furnace kicks on for the 4th time, a hempcrete wall is still radiating stored heat into the room. No machinery, no thermostat, just physics, and it breathes. Hempcrete's porosity, between 71 and 84% by volume, gives it extraordinary vapor permeability. It absorbs excess moisture from indoor air and releases it when humidity drops. No dehumidifier, no mold behind the drywall. The wall manages it. Each cubic meter of hempcrete also sequesters approximately 75 to 110 kilograms of carbon dioxide over its lifetime through both the hemp growth cycle and the ongoing lime carbonation. You wake at 3 a.m. The thermostat reads 61. Your breath fogs in the hallway. The furnace clicks on again, and you already know what the bill will look like. $300 this month, maybe more. The fiberglass in your walls is doing what fiberglass does, slowing the bleed. But it cannot stop it. It cannot store warmth. It cannot breathe. It just sits there, losing the fight 1 fraction of a degree at a time. A hempcrete wall does not bleed. It holds. It gives back what it took in. And it was illegal to build in this country for 81 years. The data was never the problem. The data was extraordinary. The problem was that the plant this material comes from shared a genus with marijuana, and in 1937, a group of very powerful men decided that was enough to destroy it. On April 14, 1937, Representative Robert L. Doughton of North Carolina introduced a bill drafted by Harry Anslinger, Commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. The bill was called the Marijuana Tax Act. Note the word marijuana. It was a Spanish slang term unfamiliar to most Americans. It was chosen deliberately. The plant the bill targeted was not unfamiliar at all. It was hemp, the same fiber Americans had grown since Jamestown, the same crop the Founding Fathers cultivated, the same material the United States Navy had depended on for every rope and every sail. The act did not technically ban hemp. It imposed a tax of $1 per ounce on all cannabis transactions, roughly $17 in today's money. Violators faced fines of $2,000 or 5 years in prison. In practice, the tax made hemp cultivation economically impossible. A building material became collateral damage in a drug war. Behind the act stood a constellation of interests so aligned they barely needed to coordinate. William Randolph Hearst, newspaper magnate, owned vast timber holdings. Hemp threatened his paper pulp empire. His newspapers ran sensationalized stories linking marijuana to violence and racial minorities. Yellow journalism weaponized against a plant. Andrew Mellon, Secretary of the Treasury and the wealthiest man in America, had invested heavily in DuPont's new synthetic fiber, nylon. Hemp was nylon's primary natural competitor. The DuPont family had just patented processes for making plastics from oil and coal. Hemp-derived cellulose was a direct threat. They had every reason to want hemp gone, and hemp disappeared. You are a builder in 2015. You have seen the European data, 30 years of it. You have held hempcrete in your hands at a conference in London. You know what it can do. You know it is fireproof, mold-proof, pest-proof, and carbon negative. You fly home to Pennsylvania and file for a building permit. The inspector looks at the application and shakes his head. Hemp is Schedule 1, the same list as heroin. Your wall is a controlled substance. The permit is denied. Because on October 27, 1970, President Richard Nixon signed the Controlled Substances Act into law. Cannabis sativa, the entire species, was classified as Schedule 1, alongside heroin and LSD. The act did not distinguish between marijuana and industrial hemp. A plant with zero psychoactive properties was placed in the same regulatory category as the most dangerous narcotics known to pharmacology. Growing hemp now required DEA registration, FBI background checks, security fencing, and 24-hour monitoring. In practice, registration costs made cultivation prohibitive even for research. From 1970 to 2018, 48 years, it was functionally impossible to grow, process, or build with hempcrete in the United States. And while hemp sat on Schedule 1, the insulation industry grew unchallenged. The global insulation market reached approximately $69 billion by 2024. The U.S. insulation contractors industry alone generates an estimated $13.6 billion in annual revenue. Fiberglass holds 35% of the building insulation market, the single largest material category, dominated by Owens Corning, Saint-Gobain, Knauf Insulation, and Johns Manville, a Berkshire Hathaway company. Fiberglass does not regulate moisture. It does not sequester carbon. It does not resist mold or pests on its own. It does not score 0 on fire tests. It loses R value in humid conditions. But for 81 years, it had no legal competitor made from hemp, because hemp did not legally exist. Even after the 2018 Farm Bill finally legalized industrial hemp, hempcrete had no pathway into American building codes. Decades of European fire and thermal data, proven, published, and peer-reviewed, were rejected by local building inspectors. Hempitecture noted that much resistance has been put up by local building inspectors and permitting agencies, as though the laws of physics are different in the countries where hempcrete has previously been tested. Hempcrete was not included in the International Residential Code until September of 2022, when it was published as Appendix BL in the 2024 IRC. And even now, adoption of Appendix BL is optional. Individual states must choose to accept it. Minnesota has not. Dozens of others have not. The material is legal, the code recognizes it, and the system still finds ways to keep it out. They classified a building material alongside heroin, not because it was toxic, but because it grew from a plant that threatened nylon. They required DEA registration, FBI background checks, and 24-hour surveillance fencing to grow a crop that George Washington cultivated at Mount Vernon. They rejected 30 years of European fire testing data because it was measured in metric, and then demanded that American labs repeat every test from scratch. They made hempcrete an optional appendix in the building code, not a standard provision, so that every state could continue to exclude it without technically banning it. They spent 81 years protecting a $69 billion insulation industry from a wall that costs almost nothing, lasts over 1,000 years, and pulls carbon from the sky while it stands. You cannot meter a wall that heats and cools itself. You cannot bill monthly for insulation that regulates moisture without a machine. You cannot sell fiberglass to a homeowner who discovers that hemp, lime, and water outperform it in every category that matters. But on the Lower Sioux Indian Community Reservation in Morton, Minnesota, in the Kansayapi community along the Minnesota River Valley, a man named Danny Desjardins decided the 81 years were over. Desjardins had worked construction since the age of 12, nearly 3 decades of framing, roofing, finishing, conventional builds on conventional timelines. Then he attended a hemp building summit in Austin, Texas. He went skeptical. He came home converted. The reservation was approximately 200 homes short. The federal housing stock that existed was poorly constructed, mold-ridden, energy-hemorrhaging boxes that forced families to choose between groceries and propane. Some households spent up to $5,000 a year just to heat homes that were never designed to hold warmth. Desjardins saw hempcrete and understood what it could change. His team installed 8,000 pounds of hempcrete in 3 days for the first house, a duplex that would serve as emergency housing. Traditional construction of a similar structure takes 3 to 4 months. The walls are 12 inches thick, filled with hempcrete between standard wood framing, finished with lime plaster. Fire-resistant, mold-resistant, pest-resistant. Projected to deliver 70% energy savings over the conventional housing the community had been given. The tribe calls it seed to sovereignty. They grow 120 acres of hemp on reservation farmland. They process it in their own 20,000 square foot facility, a $2.3 million campus that opened in September of 2024. They build the houses with their own labor. They are their own customers. 4 hempcrete homes completed, plans for 200 more. A $5 million EPA grant was received in early 2025 to renovate 30 additional homes with hempcrete panels. Joseph Goodthunder, the program's agriculture coordinator, grows hemp in rotation with corn and soybeans. He has seen a yield bump of nearly 20 bushels per acre in fields that followed hemp. To see it go from seed to wall, Goodthunder said, is one of the best things I have accomplished. And Danny Desjardins, the man who went to Texas skeptical, said something that no one in the insulation industry wants to hear. I don't want to build any other way now. I only want to build with hempcrete. A Native American community, historically underserved by federal housing, living in mold-ridden homes with $5,000 heating bills, is reclaiming a building material that was banned by the same federal government that never built them adequate housing in the first place. They are growing the plant, processing it, building with it, and living in it. The material that was classified alongside heroin is keeping families warm on the Minnesota prairie. The pattern is familiar. Earthships were blocked by building codes for 35 years before New Mexico created a testing provision. Rocket mass heaters were classified as unapproved appliances by code agencies across the country. Passive solar homes were buried under cheap natural gas and devalued by appraisal systems that could not price a zero energy bill home. And hempcrete, a material that is fireproof, carbon negative, and 1,400 years proven, was classified as a controlled substance for 81 years because it grew from the wrong plant. The pattern is always the same. The material works, the data proves it, and the system finds a reason to exclude it, not because it fails, but because it threatens the industries that depend on your monthly bill. They will not tell you that the Merovingians built with hemp and lime 1,400 years ago, and the material was still intact when archaeologists pulled it from the earth. They will not tell you that hempcrete scored a perfect 0 on the American fire safety scale, outperforming every fiberglass, foam, and spray insulation product sold in this country. They will not tell you that a wall made from hemp, lime, and water actively pulls carbon dioxide from the atmosphere while it stands, that it is not just carbon neutral, but carbon negative, and that every cubic meter of it sequesters more pollution than your car produces in a year. They will not tell you that a Native American community in Minnesota is building homes with this material right now, growing the plant, processing it, and housing their people with it, because the federal government that banned hempcrete for 81 years never built them adequate housing in the first place. But the hempcrete does not care about your building code. It does not know it was illegal. It absorbed carbon dioxide when it was banned, and it absorbs carbon dioxide now. It held heat in a 6th century bridge, and it holds heat in a Dakota prairie home in 2025. It does not need your permission to work. It just works. It does not burn. It does not rot. It does not grow mold. It does not generate a monthly bill. It does not poison the air inside your home. It does not require petroleum. It pulls carbon from the sky, stores heat like a battery, and regulates moisture like a living system. And for 81 years, it was illegal to build with in the richest country on earth. Now you know. You know what it is, what it does, and why they kept it from you. That knowledge does not expire. It does not require a permit, and no act of Congress can unlearn it. Every like and every share keeps this story alive. Every person who sees it becomes harder to mislead. They buried hempcrete for 81 years. Help us make sure it never gets buried again.